Hey guys, welcome back to the Derick Leg podcast. We're in the vault today. This is episode 33, so we're kind of getting up there. It's been a cool journey, and hopefully we'll be at 66 pretty soon, and then, let's just double and double and compound. So I've got a guest today that I'm excited to have on. We met a little bit ago when he came into my safe store and purchased a safe, and then I kind of just stumbled across his Instagram, and we'll go over that. But he's a great follow on Instagram. This is Justin Prince.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Excited to be here with you.
I'm excited. Let me read this bio for you real quick. I was trying to figure out a way to, because I was like, you're a father, you're a family, business owner, and then I didn't know you were an author until I was looking through this.
Yeah.
So so let me just rephrase that. So public figure, family man, entrepreneur, international speaker, which is I'm super jealous of because it terrifies me to speak. Author, and 2+ billion in sales.
Yeah.
And then what's cool on your Instagram, so your Instagram is I am Justin Prince, just all one word. There's a free link to a copy of your book, which I thought's cool.
Yeah, when the book was like, I just felt like I just had to get it. It was like in my heart. And so I've basically given it for free. You can get a digital copy at imjustinprince.com, and it's called Change Your World, 5 Steps to Unapologetic Success. And the idea is that you can change your world. Like the world that you are in now doesn't have to be the world that you continue to live in. And so you can change, you can grow, you adapt. I tell people, you're not who you are who you're born to become. If you think of yourself like when you were 17, yes, you were 17 at that point. That's who you were. But that's really not who you were. Like who you were is who you are, and who you are now is not who you are. It's who you're born to become. It's like you're always chasing that potential. And so that's one way I kind of look at it.
Wow, that's awesome. I like that. You had also said I was just scrolling through your content when you had agreed to be on a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And it said, and correct me because I'm sure I'm going to butcher it, but it said, oh man, I'm just going to look it up. Give me 2 seconds. I know I'm going to butcher it.
Now that's like a dramatic pause.
I know. Everyone's going to be like, that's what he was waiting for. It was something about, gosh, man, I can't believe I should have wrote it down. I'm usually more prepared than this. Anyway, I'll find it. First thing I really want to talk about. So I have a 1-year-old son.
Yeah.
Your interaction with your son, Isaac, I think is great. If there's an example on Instagram about how to be a father and how to mentor a son, I think here's a perfect example of it.
Oh man, I appreciate that. People have asked me, I've had friends of mine, super sharp dudes, run businesses, the whole thing, and they'll call me and they're like, yo, will you do like an online course on parenting or something? And I'm like, I feel like I want to say, marry an amazing woman and have an amazing son. Like those are the 2 steps,
Yeah, you're like check and check.
Check, And so I don't know. It's hard for me to take too much credit because I feel like my wife is really incredible, and then I feel like he's just a unique kid. He's just a great kid. I have 4 kids total, and they're really sweet and amazing kids too. But he and I have been able to do some really cool things together, and one of the things that's been cool is that his personal interest level, his personal desire interest level to go to the next level and just kind of chase his dreams and his goals, like he's interested in it. So it's not like I'm pressing it on him or pushing it on him. And so we share just a lot of the same interests, and so we've been able to do some really cool things together. He does a mentoring thing with his school for like every other day, half the day he stays with me, and I work from home. So he stays with me, and I just get to kind of coach him up and teach him stuff and whatever. And
that's awesome.
Kind of gets to be in the business. He's traveled with me to different things, and so he's a really great kid.
Yeah, there was one video you guys posted that you went and spoke with. I don't know if you spoke with them or it was an event you went to, but he wrote a letter.
Yeah, with John Maxwell.
Yeah, can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah. So we went to Costa Rica, he and I, to do a country transformation with John Maxwell. If your audience is familiar with John C. Maxwell, he's the world's foremost authority on leadership. In fact, he's written more leadership content than any human that's ever lived in the history of the world. The dude's written like 100 books. And
if you're into it, you've heard of him, and you've probably read his book.
Yeah, go to the airport, you'll see him. He's really, John's really an amazing guy. In fact, he's a better guy behind the scenes than you would hope. You know how you like see someone from afar and you'd hope that they're a great person?
Yeah.
John really is a great person. So he does these country transformations. Part of one of the things that he does is he teaches leadership values into like developing countries. So he's done it. I've been to Costa Rica with him twice, but Paraguay, Guatemala, and there's some countries over in Africa that he's going to be going to next year. So he teaches like leadership principles and leadership values. So I took Isaac with me. These trips are like unbelievable.
I'm sure.
They're just crazy. It's really, really, really intimate. You're with John, just kind of traveling the countryside, going to these different events and so on. And after one of the nights, Isaac, we're getting in the elevator, and he says to me, "This is a great question for our, your audience." He said, "What can I do to add value to John Maxwell?"
Yeah.
He said, because everyone's always trying to get from him, like they want to like listen to him or ask him questions or, be around him or get his time. He goes, "What can I do to add value to him?" And here's Isaac. He was at the time, he's 17 years old. John was 74. John's this world authority on leadership, and here's this kid, that's in high school.
Well, I think that's why it touched me. I
Yeah,
was
it was
like,
powerful.
what 17-year-old thinks of that?
Yeah, it was a great question.
Yeah.
And I, my first thing was like, trying to think through it. And it was such a, how it is. It's like a sincere question.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to just give him a flippant answer. I wanted to give him a sincere answer. So I was thinking it with him. We were like kind of thinking through, like, what could you do? And what we came up with is you could write him a letter, like a handwritten note. And I knew John would appreciate it. Any adult, if
Sure.
a kid did that, would be cool. Well, so Isaac said he sat down and he wrote 8 different letters. And by the way, these weren't notes, like little note cards. They were full letters, like 8 by 11 letters, you know. And he wrote them to 8 of the different people in our little group. We were in this really intimate group that had like affected his life positively. The one guy is a huge real estate agent for Keller Williams. He opens different Keller Williams franchises back in, I believe it's in Virginia is where he lives. And the guy pulled me aside and he goes, "If my son ever wrote a letter like that to someone," he said, "it'd be my proudest day as a father." He's like, "I'm framing this letter when I get home." So it was like, these letters were like, he like really poured his heart into them, So another great lesson for your listeners, John, one of my takeaways from that trip was he got us around. It was the last night. He was going in the next room. We were kind of in the green room. The next room, he was speaking to 6,000 people. And so we're kind of back in the back, and he circled us up, and it was the last night. And he said, he goes, "You want to be unforgettable." That's a great way for your audience to think about, like, how do I become unforgettable in my business, in my relationships, in just the way I treat people? Like, you become unforgettable, right? So as he was kind of sharing this philosophy of being unforgettable, he reaches in his suit pocket and pulls out this handwritten letter from Isaac. And he goes, "Isaac," and Isaac's by far the youngest person there for sure.
Yeah.
He goes, "Isaac," he goes, "you're unforgettable." He goes, "This letter," and he kind of talked about the letter. And I just thought, what a great lesson. It was interesting, Derick. I became Isaac's dad versus Justin. Like, in other words, he was more unforgettable than I was.
Yeah.
And I was like, good for him, dude, that he was like being very intentional and very proactive to be unforgettable. And again, I think as you listen to this, if you want to go to the next level in your life, in your business, in your whatever kind of key area you want to focus on, just focus on being unforgettable. Because like I think a lot of times we get very introspective, like particularly when we're going through hard times. A lot of it is on us. Like we get very introspective. And one of the fastest ways to get yourself through hard times is to go serve someone else. Like go add value to someone else. Like go say, how do I serve them? Like what can I do to be unforgettable to them? And that's a great way to break yourself out of the feelings of like despair or all these different emotions that we go through when you're really facing it, is to just focus on other people, go serve someone else. And contrast is a great teacher. So I'll give you an example. If the lake, like we live by Sand Hollow.
Yeah.
If I said to you, Sand Hollow is down 8 inches, you're just like, it doesn't mean much.
Yeah.
There's no contrast. If I said in the last 70 years, I'm making this up, but I said in the last 70 years, Sand Hollow's gone down 1 inch. In the last 3 days, it's gone down 7 inches. Then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, because now there's contrast. And so contrast is a great teacher. So if you're going through a hard time, one of the best things you can do if you're going through a hard time is build contrast. Like you find someone that's going through a harder time than you, all of a sudden you're like, man, I guess I don't have it as bad, you know, because now there's contrast. It's a great teacher. And I would just say, like, how can you be unforgettable to people that you interact with? Like, with your business, how can you be unforgettable with your employees, be unforgettable with your clients, customers come in and how do you create an unforgettable experience?
Yeah.
That's different than, a good experience or a satisfactory experience. It's like an unforgettable experience. That's a different level.
Yeah. I think my angle with sales, I'm not a true salesman. I'm not good at, I'm not the typical salesman, I guess I should say. I'm more of a just relationship. Like whether someone buys something from me or not, I always just try to educate them. If there is a safe out there that is better for them than what I can provide, then great. If that one at Sportsman's Warehouse is better for you and fits your needs better and it's in a better budget than we are, which is typically the case because we sell more US made stuff. So we don't have a lot of imported safes. So, it's weekly. I tell people, hey man, if that's better for you, you should go buy that one. Do you need help getting it to your house? Let me know and I can, we can set up a delivery for you.
That's cool.
And I'm more just like, hey, I want to be friends after this. I want to be able to have a relationship after this. I want to be able to see you in, Applebee's and be able to go give you a bro hug.
Yeah.
Even though you didn't buy something from me.
Yeah.
I just want to have that relationship with people at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's cool. I like that. I agree with that.
I found your quote on here.
This better be good, dude.
I
Been
know.
hunting this thing down.
I know. It says, I think it pertains to me is why it touched me more. And I'll kind of touch on why after. And I want to say this too. This is the most that you and I have ever talked,
yeah, for
right?
Sure.
You came in the store, you purchased a safe, we delivered it, and then you had moved and we moved it to your new house, and that was it.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to get on here and have people think that we've had this interaction. So that's what I love about it is it's so genuine.
Yeah.
This is not rehearsed, right?
For sure.
Okay. So here's your post. It says, you are not a victim to the events in your life. You are the victor of your response.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up, my dad was very emotional driven. He was very reactive emotionally. And I talk about it on here often. And it was a big shift for me. My dad and I went through some drama. We ended up not speaking. Parents got divorced about 6 months later. He had committed suicide about 3 years ago. So just a little backstory on it, right? But it was a big learning thing for me and a shift for me at 22 years old, of everybody goes through stuff. Everyone goes through different things, but how are you going to react to this now? And I think that's why it kind of hit me when I saw that, and it's worded a lot different than anything I'd ever heard before. So for me, it was kind of, and I talk about that a lot with my friends and family. Dude, everybody goes through stuff, but how are you going to react to it? How are you going to let that affect you moving forward? And I just felt like it was very important to say out there, but I liked how it puts the ownership on you. How do you react?
Yeah, I'll share this with you. There's just a simple formula the way to think about it. It's like an easy way to remember it. So it's E plus R equals O. So E plus R equals O. So it stands for event plus response equals outcome.
Okay.
And so there's I think at least three lessons you can pull from that. The first lesson is that E doesn't equal O. So the events of your life don't equal the outcome of your life. So we're not victims to the events. And we're actually not victims to the outcome because we get to own the R. We get to own our response to it.
Yeah.
We actually get to be a victor of our response. And it doesn't mean that people haven't been through just really, really hard events.
Yeah.
Things have happened that you're like, I did not sign up for this. What is happening? But you remember, you get to own your response to the events. So it's the E plus the R that equals the O. You get to co-create your outcomes because you get to be in charge. Viktor Frankl is the one that wrote Man's Search for Meaning. If you remember the story, he and his family were hauled off and put into Auschwitz, into the Nazi concentration camp. Wife and daughter were murdered, and he was there with his little boy, his son. And one of the things he talked about is called the gap. The gap was the response. And he's like, they can't take that ownership from me. I get to own my response. They can do all these things, all these events to me, but I still get to choose how I respond. They can't take that.
Yeah, that's the part that's your life.
That's right. That's yours. So first thing is the E doesn't equal the O. The second way I look at it is that the R is not react, the R is respond. Because great leaders don't react, great leaders respond. And so, you just think of the nuance of those two words, right? Like something happens, boom, we instantly react versus we take a deep breath and like intentionally choose the response to the event.
Yeah. And that was the big shift for me back then. And mainly because I'd never had an example of it. I had a buddy's dad that I got really close with when I was kind of going through all this. He was kind of checking on me and making sure my mom and I were doing okay. And I learned that from him. I'd seen him take a minute, kind of analyze, have a thought and respond. Yeah. Where growing up, it was always just an emotional reaction to everything.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. It's interesting. There's a third point I want to make on the E plus R equals O, but there's something I want to share. We don't see the world as the world is. We see the world as we are. So someone sees the thorn, or someone sees the rose. Someone else sees the thorn. The rose bush didn't change. It's raining outside. I'm ticked off, and you're grateful. The weather didn't change. And there's a father that has two sons. The father's in and out of prison, strung out on drugs. The one son is strung out of drugs, in and out of prison. The other son never touched drugs, never touched alcohol, lives a great life with a great family. They both blame the father. So in other words, we get to choose the way that we're going to respond. And it's interesting, like with you, the way that you've decided to respond to some of the things that you went through is one of the reasons, like you're sharing like a positive message with people, like adding value to people and so on. By the way, that leads to the third one. The third point on that E plus R equals O is that your R creates an E for others. So your response will create an event for other people. And so all the more reason you want to be very intentional with your response, because the way that you choose to respond will create events for other people. And so like when you think back to some of the times, like when your dad would have an emotional response, well, it creates an events for everyone in the house.
Yeah.
And so we want to be intentional with the way we're showing up, because we affect each other. There's research from heartmath.org that basically said the feelings of our heart emanate 10 feet out around us. So if you ever like walk by somebody, or maybe someone came into your store, and someone you didn't even talk to, didn't know them at all, didn't talk to them, and they walk out and you're like, I don't know what the deal is with that guy, or man, she was really happy. Like you could just kind of feel their emotions a little bit, right? And that's real. Like you can feel people, you can feel their emotions.
Yeah, if you're aware.
Yeah,
like
if you tune into
open to it.
Yeah, for sure. And the point though is that we affect each other. That's the point. And so I was part of a mastermind with a guy named Brendon Burchard. Brendon Burchard he's written a bunch of different books, but he wrote a book called High Performance Habits, the biggest study of high performers in human history. And one of the things, it's a three-word phrase that he lives by. So like he calls it a door frame trigger. So you know how people have like a trigger, like an emotional response?
Yeah.
He does it very intentionally. So like when he walks into a door frame, his trigger is 3 words: bring the joy. Like bring the joy. So imagine if you get home from work, you walk into the door to the kids or to your spouse, and you are super intentional with like, I'm going to bring the joy. Like the way I'm going to respond to my day is to like bring joy into the home. Same thing with like your employees. Like I'm going to bring the joy to these employees today. I'm going to bring the joy to my customers today. Like, because we affect each other, we rub off on each other. And so finding a way to bring joy to people, add value to people, smile, remember their name, look them in the eye, like speak in terms of things that are actually interesting to them, ask good questions, listen, and we can bring energy to people. And it's really interesting. Going back to being unforgettable, man, if you are the kind of person that is known for the joy you bring into a room, you'll be unforgettable.
Yeah.
Because most people are not that guy. Most people are very focused on themselves. They're very in their own head, and they're not focused on other people. They're not focused on bringing joy to anyone else.
Part of the podcast has kind of made me change a lot of that, because I'm known to be a talker. Ask my wife. She doesn't get a whole lot of words in. But being able to do this, and I've loved learning this lesson for myself, is to sit here and it's like forces me to sit and listen to someone, right?
It's a great skill.
Yeah, but not only listening, like processing it all when you're saying it, and taking notes really helps me to write it down and even just check back to it later. And I guess narcissistically I listen to my own podcast, right? But
No,
that's because there's a lot of content on there I want to reconsume.
Yeah, there's great content that's poured out. A dull pencil is more valuable than a sharp mind. So like reminding yourself of what you wrote down, like, so good. You go back and pull out little nuggets. And then I don't think it's narcissistic listening to your podcast. I the way I would look at it is it's a great way for you not only to recapture some of those nuggets, but it's also a great way for you to improve. Be like, okay, I could have listened more here. Or, okay, I could ask better questions here. Or that question that took me 53 words to ask, I could have done it in 7 words. Like you just kind of get more concise,
Okay.
And you just improve.
Dialed.
Yeah, you just get to a point where you're like, these podcasts are freaking good. Like I even like listening to this because you're just you're just getting better. Like I think the best athletes in the world watch film.
Sure.
It's not because they're narcissistic. They watch film because they want to freaking get better.
Yeah, I like that. I want to talk about Isaac a little more, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, of course.
And
it's one of my favorite subjects.
I was gonna say, and I know because right when you sat down, I had mentioned him, and you just lit up.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like being a father, and me again, having a 1-year-old, right? I mean, what are some things growing up, maybe some traits that you can instill? I know that kids will be kids, and you can't really change them, right? Or I don't know, maybe you can. I've only been a dad for a year, but I mean, what are your thoughts on that? How do you feel?
Yeah.
How old are your kids, by the way?
So Isaac's 17.
Oldest?
So, yeah, he's my oldest, and I have 14 and 12-year-old little girls, and they're just amazing, really amazing young ladies. And then I have a 9-year-old 9-year-old son.
Okay, so
who's
we
a
can talk
total
about
stud.
all of them.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
just seen
No, of
Isaac through
course.
the
No, it's great.
interactions.
Yeah, I mean, look, I just have a couple thoughts. I don't know if I'm an expert on this, but a couple thoughts on it. One would be the essence of leadership is example. So just you want to be the person that you want those kids to grow into.
Yeah, good point.
And so it's one thing to tell them like, go do this, go do that, go do this, versus like just be about it, And people have asked Isaac, like, man, Isaac, what's it like to have your dad? And he goes, the number one thing with my dad is he freaking like really, he does it. Like
he walks the walk.
Yeah, this isn't just like something he just tells me to do. And so I think that would just be the first thing. Like just be the person that you'd want your son to look at and say, man, I'm freaking proud of my dad. Like my dad works hard, whatever it is, works hard. He's honest. He shows up with intention with people, treats my mom with respect. Like just you like be those things.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot easier to teach through the actions versus the words. Right. Second thing I'd say is you want to recognize what you want to see more of. So one of the challenges I think we have as parents, and you'll face this more and more as they get older, right? Like when they're in their teenage years and even before that. But we can nag a little bit. It's like, dude, you're like, in other words, they're doing 5 things great, but their room's still a disaster. And you're like, what the heck's wrong with your room? And you can find the one thing that they're not doing well, or like your shoes look all frumpy and dirty and whatever. You can find the one thing.
Yeah.
And so what I've tried to do is just like recognize what I want to see more of. So I try and find some of the positive things they're doing and reinforce all the positives. And I try and like reinforce more often than I'm critiquing.
Okay.
So I'm like, hey, you look super sharp today, or I like your hair, or man, I really appreciated your manners with so-and-so. I like the way you treated mom, or whatever it is, versus only just freaking just nagging your kids.
But then
all
do you
the
still
time.
come in with like, hey, but maybe we can do this better?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Listen, I think my kids would say like, I don't.
Yeah, maybe we should get Isaac on here next.
Yeah, no, we should. He'd be a better podcast than me. I don't feel like I put up with a bunch of crap either. Like
Sure.
I'm not a pushover either. But at the same time, you want to recognize what you want to see more of. And again, if you're reinforcing the positive, you'll see more of the positive. And then you say, you can still coach him up. I feel like when I coach him up, he said this to me before. He basically he's like, I feel like you're that like I want. Like I'm not telling him, we're having a discussion. Like I'm willing to talk him through why.
Okay.
Maybe that's the way I'd say it.
Yeah.
It's like let your kids know why. Because a lot of times we're like, because I'm the dad, that's why.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Because you're a kid and I'm an adult.
That's right. Okay. If we have to pull rank every once in a while, maybe like at the end of the discussion, it's like, bro, we talked it through.
Right.
It's because I said. I'm cool with that at the end. But I'd still have the discussion because kids are smart. Like kids can figure things out. So I'd just be like, I'd talk them through like, here's what I'm thinking. It's actually because I want you to grow to be a great man. And here's the reason I'm kind of coming hard at you with this, and for these reasons. I'm trying to teach you this lesson or this perspective. And kids, I think when they have more of that context versus like you have to because I said, I think the you have to because I said, we get only so much of their actual desire to really do it versus them wanting to do what's right for them because they want to do it. And I think if you can talk it through with them, give them some perspective, I think it's a really good thing. One of the other things I've really tried to teach my kids, and I try and teach this to my teams and business and everything, but it's just to rid yourself of all entitlement. Like no one owes you anything. And so you take full ownership of your life for the wins and the losses. We just don't blame, we don't whine, we don't complain. We were talking about Jocko before we started the podcast. So Jocko Wilnick and Leif Babin, they're two former Navy SEALs that wrote a book called Extreme Ownership. And basically the crux of the whole book basically is like, it's always your fault.
Yeah.
Like you just take total ownership of your life. And we live in a society where being a victim or like a victim mentality or a victim identity, remember, you'll never outperform the way you see yourself. So if you see yourself as a winner or if you see yourself as a loser, you won't show up and play like a winner. If you see yourself as a winner, you won't roll over and quit and lay there like a loser. Like you'll be consistent with the way you see yourself. If you see yourself as a victim, you'll play that card. And it leads to whining, complaining. It leads to a lot of disempowerment. Like I can't move forward. And part of what I've tried to share with my kids is like, you're just not a victim. You got to go out there and make it happen. And by the way, they've had, a pretty blessed life at the end of the day. I mean, these kids are, it gets gone pretty well comparatively.
Sure.
But at the same time, I don't want them to feel entitled. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'd give them the shirt off my back as long as they don't feel like it's owed to them.
Sure.
And so I want them to learn how to work and how to put in an honest day's effort and how to treat people with respect and kindness and courtesy and how to have good manners. And I feel like as they do those things, again, that's the stuff you're recognizing. You're saying, hey, I well done. So I could probably keep going on a couple different things, but I think the essence of leadership is example. So I think the main thing is just really trying to be a great example to your kids.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's great. I like that you brought that up first because I feel like that's what it is.
Yeah.
There's one thing that you were talking about, focusing on the one negative instead of all the positive. I heard this story the other day. I'm sure it was something on TikTok or some social media. They talked about Einstein was teaching a math class and he went up in front of the class and he did, 1 + 1 is 2, 1 + 3 is 4. And he wrote all these math problems out. And then, for sake of long story short, he wrote one math problem wrong. And then he kept going. Well, all the class started laughing at him behind him as he kept writing all these math problems. And the class is laughing, finally turns around and says, what are you guys laughing at? And they said, well, you're 9 + 5, you wrote it 16, it's 14. And they're all laughing. And he said, so why would you guys focus on the one thing that I did wrong instead of all of these math problems I did right? And it stayed with me when I heard that. And I thought, man, it's true. And I feel like when you were just saying that, I kind of related to when you have that negative, and I think for me, and I'm sure it's different for other people, for me, if you had that negative, that you're drilling that negative with them instead of all those positive, it just becomes a negative experience. Mm-hmm. And that's the negative thing that sets inside of your head. So I think that's, again, I've only done it for a year, so call me in 20 years. But
no, that's great. That's a great story. I think I watch a lot of parents, and I'm, like I said, I'm figuring it out right along with them. So I don't feel like I'm an expert at this, but I see a lot of parents, and it's kind of what we said. They pull rank. You have to, because I said, they don't take the time to just discuss it and work it through with the kid. And that's one. And then two is we do find we just pick at them. And man, these kids are facing a lot right now.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, what battle do you really want to fight, dude? Like overall, they're doing, if overall they're doing pretty darn good, let's focus on that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they can't improve. I want my kids to be excellent. I mean, my kids know. It's like, to me, I want that to be their identity, that we do things with excellence, not just like halfway. Like I want them to have that as an identity. However, there's a ton of grace in there that like, we're all figuring this thing out. And, my daughter this last week it was with Snow Canyon. Mm-hmm. They took 5th at state in drill.
Okay.
There's 11 teams, 9 of them moved on to day 2, and then only 5 placed, and they placed 5th. So they placed, but they were the last ones to place.
Sure.
And on one hand, I'm really proud of her, and I'm extremely proud of her and the coaches and the team. They did a great job. And on the other hand, I've told her, I said, losing is part of winning. Like, I liked that those girls cried after they lost, because it means they care. We live in a world where there's like, everyone gets participation trophies. Like in life, you don't always get a participation trophy. You got to win or lose. And they lost. And so it's like, because you could be like, well, at least you tried hard. At least they did all those things. And then the other thing is, you can look at the people that won. In this case, it was Dixie.
Okay.
Dixie's won 4 years in a row.
Wow.
And they're excellent. Dixie's excellent. By the way, the Snow Canyon girls were excellent too, but Dixie was just that much better, right? You can look at them and you can say, well, screw them. Like, we don't really like them. You can kind of be like, basically you can blame or whine or make excuses. And I told my little girl, I said, no. I said, like, what can we learn from those girls? And it was interesting. The Dixie girls watched more film. They those girls, they earned that win. And so losing is a great teacher too. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you lose, that sting, that taste in your mouth. Like, we just had Tom Brady retire when we're filming it or recording this podcast. Tom Brady's known as the GOAT. He was for sure the greatest quarterback ever, maybe the greatest football player, and maybe the greatest freaking athlete ever. The guy was just the man, right? So he won 7 NFL titles, 7, 2 different teams. He went to the Super Bowl 10 times, which means he lost 3 of the 7, or 3 of the 10, right? Won 7, lost 3. But dude, he was in the league for 22 years.
Yeah. So
there was 12 years he didn't even make the championship, which means he lost earlier on. 3 of those years went to the final game, which, I mean, you talk about pain, you lose that, and then he became the greatest of all time. Losing is part of winning. And so I liked that those girls, had that bad taste in their mouth and cried. I was like, good for you, that they care and that they're trying their best to be a winner,
Yeah, there's a lot of sports movies where it's like, remember how you feel right now because we're going to play them later or whatever the sentence is. And I grew up, my family's very into sports. We're all athletic. We all played everything. But I think we had way too much focus on, well, one, the emotions of it all, right? Like we kind of touched on earlier, but there was so much focus on like you lost instead of, oh man, we could have done these things better. We could have moved forward on these things. And I've kind of tweaked that just into life, really. We were we lost, we get home, we're mad, we throw our ball bag like that. Cause again, right. Like that's kind of what we saw growing up, but, having that, like say in business, when you can come into a room, or a customer comes into the store and we have that interaction with them, they walk away knowing that they were going to buy and they didn't. And more than likely, you've probably lost that to someone else now if they're at that decision-making time and they move on without collecting payment. And so instead of being like, oh man, like, me being, my buddy Tyson said this to me the other day and it really hit me, and I've used it over and over and over in my daily speech now. You're always the hero in your own story. And so instead of me being like, oh, it was them, they did this, they just weren't ready, it was too expensive for them. I'll sit down and grab a notepad and I'll say, okay, this was their objection. This is how I responded. This is their objection. This is how I responded.
I love that.
And did I not ask for the sell early enough? Did I ask for it too early? Was I too pushy? And obviously they're not going to remember me. They'll go to the next person and purchase theirs. So I've tried to kind of tweak that to a lot of just my daily interactions, mainly in business, but
I love that. I mean, I love that. I teach it like there's winning and losing, but there's really winning and learning.
Yeah.
As long as you're learning, you're winning.
Well, and it's not focused on enough.
That's right.
Especially in competitive sports, it's not. Even like the not keeping score or the participation trophies, I just don't understand that because you can turn that into a positive, but question. It never is.
Listen, my high school team, my senior year, we won 1 game and we lost 8.5 games. You say, how do you lose 8.5 games? So there was 3 teams that were terrible, and we'd all beat each other. And so there was one last spot in like the state or whatever. And so we played those two teams played a half. Whoever won played us for the half, and we lost the half. So we lost 8.5 games. And so it's easy to say, well, if someone's used to winning, then they can just talk about winning and losing, and they're very black and white, very binary about it. The truth is, losing is part of winning. That's how you do it. Like you either win or you learn. As long as you're learning, then you're winning. So like that, the process of someone walks out and you say, where did I blow that cell?
Yeah.
Or how could I improve? Like what skills could I acquire? Like what questions could I ask? Instead of blaming them that they didn't buy and they're losers. No, you're like, no, I'm going to get better at this. That's a great story.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't want to cut you off. There was a couple times when you were talking, I wanted to jump in with that because I'm starting to see it, that you're your hero in your own story. And I don't know. I've wanted to kind of, maybe I've just wanted to say it on here because I want to give Tyson some kudos because he's in my head every day now. But it's so true. Like when I go through, when you're talking about being a victim and that kind of stuff, you go through life just thinking, like, if you really think about it, when you have these different interactions with people, I mean, it's more prevalent when you have a negative action with somebody and they walk away. And that's why there's always two sides to every story, right? And when you talk to those two people on those both sides, they were both in the right because they're the both hero, right, on their own mind. And I was talking to Tyson about this, and I said, yeah, dude, I'm not very good at that, and it's probably something I should be better at. And he's probably one of my friends that I'm the most open with, him and one of my other friends. And he says, dude, you're probably the best at it because you're aware that there's another side of that story. And he's been like my ride or die since high school, and we've been through a few businesses together where he's helped me out. He does all my marketing right now. And one of the businesses we had been through, he said, you're probably the best at that. And he's like, I'll give you an example. Every time someone wanted to come up and ask what happened in that business and you had every chance in the world to blow up your old partner, he's like, you would just move it over. Hey man, it just didn't work out. We had different beliefs. Whatever I would tell people just to move the story on and get on to the next thing. And he was like, there's a lot of stories you tell yourself where you're the best, but when you express that out to other people, you seem to always know that there's two sides. I don't know what that other side of the story is, but I'm aware that it's there.
First of all, that takes a lot of emotional maturity on your part to not have to be right all the time or have to like rehash and make yourself look like like they actually did me wrong and here's what actually happened. That's a lot of emotional maturity on your part. I want to offer an additional perspective to the hero.
Sure.
So Joseph Campbell was the first one I think that created the hero's journey. But Donald Miller wrote a book called The Story Brand. This book is so good.
The Story
Brand. It's called Building Your Story Brand is the name of the book. And so there's basically a hero and a villain in every story. And there's also a third character, which is the guide.
Okay.
So let me ask you a question. When you're on social media or when you're at your business, are you the hero of the story or what role should you play? I mean, obviously we don't want to be the villain, right?
Yeah.
But the role we play is we're the guide. The customer is the hero.
Yeah.
The person following you on social, they're the hero. Because remember, they're the hero of their story.
Yeah.
And so we're not the hero. We're the guide. One of the mistakes we make in marketing is we try and position ourselves in essence as the hero. Like I know everything and I can help you because I'm the hero of the story. Everyone's trying to be the hero of their own story, their own journey. And so we come in as a guide. And a guide, like if you think of like Yoda to Luke, that was a guide, right? Or even an Obi-Wan was a guide. If you think of like a Star Wars example, there's all movies. If you watch the movies, will have a hero, they'll have a villain, and they'll have a guide. They'll have somebody that's in there saying, "Here's how you get through this."
Yeah.
And so when your customers come in, they're the hero, and our job is to serve them on social media. Instead of being the hero, we're the guide. Like, let me help you with your, the things that you're struggling with, like the things you need to overcome. And that was a small shift, like a small and subtle but really powerful shift for me, when it came to like my marketing and the way that I try and serve people is I'm not trying to be the hero to everybody.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be the guide to people. Like, let me help you get to where you want to go versus helping me get where I want to go.
Yeah, that's like we had talked right before we started with the podcast. I guess that's a good way to put what we've tried to do here, is not be the hero, not be the villain, but just, I mean, the way I put it is I try to give people a platform to get on here and talk, but
Yeah.
I guess being the host, I guess it kind of default puts me as the guide.
For sure, of course.
But yeah, I really like that. That's a really good way to look at it. Now I got to add that into all my thought processes.
Yeah. Well, one other quick thought about being a hero, right? If you're gonna be the hero of your story, the Latin root of the word hero is the word servo, and servo kind of literally translated means servant. Or
okay.
So in other words, to be the hero, you are the one that serves. Like you're the one that serves other people. You're the one that adds value. So if you think back to like the pharaohs, like the Egyptian pharaohs, they would like carry them on these huge things on their shoulders. Like they were the hero, right? They were the big star. No. True, like service to many leads to greatness. Like if you want to like really crush it in your life, you got to find a way to serve more people. Because if you want to be the hero, so hero to your spouse, hero to your kids, serve your spouse, like add value to their life. That's how you become the heroes, by serving other people.
Yeah, I mean, the service, add value. Like, I don't want to say it's cliche, but it's just something you hear a lot. But really, when you crack down to it, my thing is like when I've been in, like mental health struggles or whatever, it's a gratitude thing. I try to have gratitude, but there's a lot of things in my life where, well, I'll give you an example with having our kid. I was stressed to the max. We were building a house. I had the safe store. I have 4 other businesses. And then we were having a kid and we just got a puppy. And I was just like, what are we doing? Just stacking and stacking. And then we've had Nicole on here before. She had attempted suicide at the same spot my dad committed suicide.
Jeez.
And I went to school with her. And so I heard about this happening, and with all these distractions going on, I like got consumed. There was a couple nights I just got consumed on her story, and she's had
real quick, who's Nicole?
Yep. So Nicole's a girl I went to school with.
Okay.
We weren't super close in school, but we knew who each other were. I was more tied to it, I think, because it was the same. So it's Webb Hill, where all the satellite towers and stuff are, kind of towards Bloomington Hills.
Got it.
So on the south side of that's a cliff. My dad drove his car off of that a couple years ago, and then she had jumped off of it.
Oh.
And so when I heard the story, of what happened with her, and she's so now she's in a wheelchair. But she looks amazing, and she's had mental health struggles most of her life. We talked about it on here, so I'm not scared to mention it, but she was sexually assaulted when she was in 2nd grade, like at the school. So crazy story, but so this is what I do. I get down all these rabbit holes and I can't remember where I started, but so when it comes to service, I'm going through all these things, and then I just get consumed in her story and what I can do to help and what we can do to help. And so my wife's ready to pop, and I take on this benefit dinner that we ended up throwing for Nicole. We raised like $10,000 so they could help redo their house to be wheelchair accessible. Big dinner. I had a ton of people help me, don't get me wrong, but I thought, like, when I'm stressed out and I'm ready to have a breakdown and I have all these things going on, I feel like, I don't want to say she attempted for me, right? But like that was an out for me to have that service to be able to help me get through some of that mental instability that I was going through. And so when you say the service side of it, that's what clicked in my head. And I guess I kind of felt that I should share it, but that's what I'm getting at is service can take your mind off of things. It helps other people. And then that's just a trickle effect, right?
Yeah. So, there's an old kind of Bible concept that says, if you lose yourself, you'll find yourself. Like if you lose yourself in the service of others, you'll find yourself. And that is very counterintuitive to how we think of things. Like if I lose my iPhone, I didn't find it, I lost it. And so it's like, if I go serve someone else, go help someone else, go put on the dinner or the charity dinner that you did, somehow with all of that work that you put in is actually the one that it gets the most benefit is you.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you go to the gym or you go do a strenuous workout, like you lose sweat and you lose energy because you give all this energy. And you would think, well, dude, if I lose energy, I've lost it. But somehow you gain all this energy, like you kind of feel better about yourself, you know? And what you give, you actually get back tenfold. So if you have a bushel of grain and your family's starving, if you grind up the grain and you use it and turn it into bread, you feed the kids, it's gone. But if you'll take the bushel of grain and you'll give it up to the soil, like you'll invest it in the soil and you'll water it and plant it and so on, and take care of it, you don't get back a bushel of grain. You get back 1,000 bushels of grain. So there's just this thing of like, if you lose yourself in the service of other people, you actually find yourself. You're actually the one that gets the most benefit.
Yeah. The few times I've been able to step in and do that, whether I'm just a helping hand or kind of heading it up, I've felt that. I mean, I've felt that it was a benefit for myself more than anything. And
that's cool.
And like in that particular instance with the dinner, everyone, like I felt bad. Like people were coming up and they were like, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm almost like, I was kind of doing this for me. Like it was a distraction of having my first kid that I was stressed out about with the house and the businesses and everything. And I was like, this is almost like easier for me to get through the last month planning this and kind of being, I don't want to say distracted because, you know, I had purpose in it. So I had thought in it. But yeah, I guess when you were really saying that and being able to find yourself, it kind of hit me of that's what I was doing unaware, exactly. You know?
That's awesome. It's a great story.
I do have a question written down here. You do a ton of speaking. Like I say, I keep talking all your content because I can't believe how much is on there. It's like someone could go through your content. I mean, how many do you have? 2,000, something like that? Close to 2,000 on Instagram, like posts?
Oh, I haven't even looked. I don't even know.
I mean, I bet you're close if you're not at 2,000. Yeah. I mean, there's so much stuff on there that you can consume. I mean, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I mean, we've got hours and hours of podcasts on here. So it's like, you know, if you got downtime or you got time to do something, you can pop on a podcast and fulfill that time and,
for sure.
And have some type of education or benefit from it. So here's this question. With all the speaking you've done, what's something that you've wanted to be asked and you haven't?
Like professionally?
Yeah. Well, I mean, really anything, religion, family, entrepreneur.
That's a good question. I'm trying to think if there's something that I've specifically thought about wanting to get asked to do. I mean, there's like some people I'd love to meet, you know? So
yeah.
I'd love to, there's some people that I think would be interesting to go have dinner with.
Who's that?
I have kind of a long list of people that I'd love to meet, you know? I'm naturally curious. And so there's kind of a long list of people that I'd love to sit down with. And again, it's a long running list. I don't know if I necessarily agree with them on every single subject, but I'd love just to ask questions and listen. I'm fascinated by kind of like what we talked about earlier, like the human potential. And I don't mean this cliche, but like, why does an Oprah go through racism, terrible abuse, just a really, you know, bouncing around in her home life, runaway, the whole thing, and she turns into Oprah.
Yeah.
Where someone else would go through that and they wouldn't turn into Oprah.
Yeah, or they have like somewhat of a cush life and they don't achieve that.
That's right. And so just like, what's the separator with people? Like, what's the deal? Like, you know, I think excellence is interesting. Like, I'd love to sit down with Tom Brady and just have dinner and just ask questions and listen and learn, and just, I'm using him again as an example.
Yeah.
So there's just, I'm fascinated with what makes people tick, particularly people that they just kind of are playing the game at like a whole different level than maybe the rest of us are, you know, like their vibration's kind of high. And, you know, Jim Rohn used to say, he said, I wish we could do seminars where you could go listen to the guy who's 45 years old, strung out on drugs, lost his family, lost his business, had all the potential in the world and lost it all. He goes, because you would take a bunch of notes on what not to do. So you can learn a lot through people that, through failure too.
Yeah.
But he said no one wants to pay for that seminar. No one wants to show up and pay. But that you can learn a lot vicariously. A buddy of mine says, he said, smart men learn by their own mistakes. Geniuses learn by the mistakes of others. What I'm saying? Like you just don't make the same mistake someone else made. You're like, I'm just going to a friend of mine used to say when they were in Vietnam, they said, just follow the footsteps of the person ahead of you because you'll come out a lot through the minefields because you'll come out a lot taller.
Okay.
And it's just the idea that you just don't make the same mistakes that someone else is already making,
I've never understood when people say I have to learn that on my own. I'm the type of guy where I just have to make the mistake on my own and learn it. And I've never understood that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, no, listen, I can watch you make the mistake and be like, no, I don't like that one. I'm going to avoid that one.
With everything that I feel like you are a high achiever at, as far as my standpoint, where I'm at. And by the way, I mean, I don't want to sit here and try and float your boat, but I think you're a great example on there. So I really appreciate everything
much,
you put up.
Man, it means a lot. Thank you.
What would you say that you are an expert at?
That's a great question. So I'll say this with a ton of authority, and I don't mean it to like a lot of confidence and authority. I don't mean it to sound like in a boastful way, but it's
I mean, that's why I asked.
Yeah, there's some things that you've paid the 10,000. You put in the 10,000.
That's what I was gonna say. With everything you've done, I feel like you are, and you should be able to say you are.
Yeah, I think when it comes to leadership, like building and leading teams, I feel like I have a lot to say on that subject. When it comes to speaking, I have a lot to say on that subject. When it comes to like business strategy, like particularly like at 30,000 feet, thinking through strategy, creating models, creating systems, being able to see opportunities in the marketplace and like avoid pitfalls in the marketplace. I feel like I have a lot of hours doing that. You know what I'm saying? And so like working with people, motivating people, inspiring the excellence out of people. Like I feel like I have as much to say for our generation as anybody that's our age, Yeah. So I've paid decades of time into those subjects,
I like that. I'm going to write that down real quick for you.
Yeah. I mean, I always want to have a white belt mentality, meaning I'm always trying to get better, trying to learn. But man, some of those subjects you really have poured a lot of time into.
And you're like, I've hit on that enough.
Maybe like you as safes, like you just know what the heck you're talking about at some point.
Yeah. One thing I thought was really cool, and I heard this, well, I saw your video on it, and then Abe actually kind of added to it with me the other day, but I was telling Abe, I said, dude, I think it's really cool that not only have you, Trout, I guess, international speaker, right? Not only have you been all over the world, I mean,
yeah, for sure.
So you've been all over the world and spoke. You'll also take that time to sit with your daughter's team and have a motivational talk with them.
Yeah, for sure.
Abe was saying he wasn't able to make, I guess you were with the young men. The
church group that we were with, we moved across the city.
That's right.
So the former church, they got all their youth and came over to our house this last Sunday.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was fun. It was really cool to be able to share a few thoughts with them,
Yeah, but that's cool, man. Like you're able to do this over here at such a high level, but be able to scale that down to it and even just knowing our community and the leaders that are going to be brought up in our community, that you're able to sit in there and touch one of them and be able to say something that sticks with them.
It's so interesting. So my first business failed. I was below zero financially, back on credit cards, back on taxes. At one point, I'm living in the loft of my wife's parents' garage. I got 2 little babies sleeping in the closet. My wife and I sleep in the little room. And I'm working 2 part-time jobs, chasing the dream, my entrepreneurial dreams so I'm like working my business in between these jobs, trying to keep the family afloat. My wife is pregnant and sick. I'm just like, gosh, dang. And I remember I was driving on the freeway once and I was like in tears, not bawling my eyes out, but just frustrated. And I remember making 2 promises. They're promises to myself, but they were really promises to God. I was just like having this conversation in my car, just like, I'm ready to quit. I'm like, forget this. I remember saying, I was like, listen, if I ever can become successful, like if I can ever figure all this out, I promise I won't forget what it feels like to struggle. Like the financial pressure. When you're under financial pressure, every time you swallow, you can feel the pit in the lump in your throat, or like the pressure on your chest every time you breathe. Like,
yeah, I've been there.
Oh,
yeah.
dude, anyone that's been there, they know what I'm talking about. And then I said, the other promise that I made was I promise that I'll help as many other people achieve like their dreams or their goals as I possibly can. And so, now I'm in a spot like my daughter's drill coaches asked me to come speak, and they gave me 15 minutes. And I thought to myself, I'm like, freak, dude. Like, I'll put on seminars that are like, they're hours and hours and hours. I'm like, 15 minutes. Like, what crap? What am I going to say? So you drive across town and try and like light it up for 15 minutes the best you can. You know? And the youth, and I told it. I gave a talk on dreams over drama, like focusing on the dream over the drama, and focusing on like having dreams in your life and having goals and like being someone that's chasing something. There's a Bible story that I referenced. There's an old Bible story about a guy named Benaiah. Basically, what it says is this guy chased a lion into a pit on a snowy day. How many people do you know that chase lions into pits on snowy day? Like, that's a pretty unique guy.
Yeah.
And Mark Batterson's a Christian author, and he wrote a book called Chase the Lion. And basically what he talks about is like, chase your dreams. The lion's your dreams. He said most people feel the roar in their heart to like be someone, to do something with their life, to go for it, and they ignore the roar. He said it takes a special person to have the courage to run to the roar, to like chase a lion into a pit on a snowy day, And so I just think that matters. I think dreams matter. I think your dreams, your goals, all that stuff matters, because Tony Robbins says people are not lazy. They simply don't have dreams that inspire them. So like your dream is the fuel for your soul. Like you want to dream a dream that inspires you. And if you really want to go to the next level, you want to dream a dream that inspires others.
Yeah.
Like in other words, your dream's so big that it actually moves other people into action. And Brendon Burchard in that book, High Performance Habits, he said, if you were to tap a high performer on the shoulder and say, hey, what's your latest goal? Or like, what's your latest dream? Or like, what are you working on right now? He said that high performers can answer that question 5 to 7 seconds faster than everyone else in the population. And the reason is it's like a dominant thought. They're chasing it every single day. They're making it happen. They don't mope and just hope things are going to happen. Hope's not a good strategy. You want to have like a plan and a strategy, and like, here's where I'm going. And again, if you're having a really tough time in your life, it's almost like, well, it's easy for you to say. Do you know what I'm saying? But a dream can pull you through tough times. I remember I went and spoke in Omsk, Russia.
Omsk.
Middle of OMSK.
Okay.
Is the way they spell it. Middle of Siberia.
Okay.
And literally we're driving down the street and there's a blown out tank in the middle of the road still today. This is years ago that I was there, but it's been about 11 years. And it was unbelievable. Unbelievable. Like you could see the devastation of communism and the devastation of the former Soviet Union. But you could also see very quick history lesson.
Sure.
So Russia was run by a czar. A czar is a king, right? In 1917, they had what they called the Bolshevik Revolution. The Bolsheviks was kind of like the working man's political party that basically came in and like overtook the czar. They killed the family, killed the king and queen, everybody. And it was led by a guy named Vladimir Lenin. They implemented communism from 17 to 21. So 21 was when they became in power. From 21, so it went through Lenin, then through Stalin, etc. From 21 to 91, that's 70 years. So I don't know exactly what the average lifespan, but it's basically, let's say 70 years, 70, 80 years. So it's basically one generation of people, right?
Sure.
For one generation, they couldn't dream. Like literally you couldn't dream because they burned all the books. They ripped God out of the country. So there was no churches. They just ripped all that out. They burned the books. You couldn't own a business. There was no private ownership because it's communism. It's the commune. They're all like part of the commune. So what would happen is they gave you sausage, bread, healthcare, and shelter, but everything else the state owned. And so for 70 years, you couldn't like say, you know what? I want to own a business where I sell like safes. No, that's just not how it works. Thing. Or you're not going to own it. At least you might work there, but you work for the state.
Yeah.
Everyone, if you think of the former flag, the USSR flag, it was a sickle for the peasants and then a hammer for the workers.
Okay.
So it was like for the peasants and the workers, we're going to give you sausage, bread, healthcare. But they took their soul,
Yeah.
you know, because they couldn't dream anymore.
Yeah, but everybody's equal, man.
Everyone's equal. And so here's the thing. If you live in a country that has economic opportunity and political freedom, you not only have the right to like pursue your dreams, I feel like you have the responsibility.
I agree.
To pursue your dreams. Why? Because there's other people that don't even have the choice. So it's like you gotta make something of your life. You gotta like focus on the dream, not the drama. You gotta chase lions into pits on snowy day, like run to your roar, you know? And so that was some of the message I shared to those kids.
No, that's awesome.
But yeah, I just think that stuff's really important. I think it's a fuel for your soul.
That's awesome, man. Well, we're coming up on an hour. I said we'd only do an hour. I don't want to take a ton of your time. I'm sure you got a family that's waiting for you.
Honored to be here with you.
Dude, I really appreciate you coming on. I hope that you'd be open to maybe coming on and we bring Isaac with you and we just kind of ramble through some stuff. Because I'd love to see his perspective on or
perspective.
That's the word.
Yeah, he's a really special kid. Like for reals. Like and I don't say that just with nepotism as his father.
Sure.
Obviously I'm proud of him as dad, that whole thing. But he's a real special kid. He's a really special kid. He's a deep thinker. And he's someone that I don't know. He's just like an old soul. This kid's got a lot of wisdom. You know, he'd be a fun person to interview on here.
Yeah. Yeah, we either just have him or we'll bring both of you guys on. It'll be cool.
That'd be sick.
Okay, man. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
Thanks
honored
for
to be with you,
an
brother.
hour.
Appreciate the great work you're doing.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
All right, guys. That's an hour. This is Justin Prince. Follow him on Instagram. Like I said, I've caught myself kind of scrolling through his videos every now and then. I see your story and I'll click on you and then to kind of go through a little more content. Anything else people can follow you on?
You can go to iamjustinprince.com. That's my site. I'm on really all the platforms.
Okay.
From LinkedIn to TikTok, you know, and kind of everything in between. So happy to connect and happy to add value in any way I can.
Yeah. And he means that. Like I said, we didn't have this huge relationship before he came on. So I feel like I know you a lot better now. So I appreciate it. All right. Well, thanks for hanging with us with the last hour and we'll catch you guys next week.